Hi everyone, welcome to my talk today. It's great to see you here in my lounge. It's such a shame we can't meet up in person, but hopefully that won't be too much longer away. My talk today is going to be about the cone of power and how to raise energy in a magic circle, especially when you're on your own or when you've got a large group of people, both of which situations can present their own challenges in raising really powerful energy for magical workings. I'm also going to be talking a little bit about how to sense magical energies and how we can use our own senses at home to practice aura detection and a few other little energy exercises that will help you when you're in a circle trying to raise energy, and it will make sure that you get a cone of power instead of a pudding of power. I want to talk about the pudding of power. When we are aiming for a cone of power, see Exhibit A, we start spiraling together. We start to dance and weave and chant and drum. We are dancing and clapping and wailing out significant words that are in line with our intentions for that spell or for that ritual. And as we circle together or on your own, you know exactly what your intentions are. And the energy begins to peak as it flows round and round and round, until it reaches this beautiful fountain of energy that you can see here, spiraling right up out of the top. That is the energy peaking and going out off into the universe to do our work for us. And that's lovely, but it can go significantly wrong. And especially when you're in a group of people who have been practicing together for very long, or perhaps a group of people who have got different mixed abilities. When we start out on this witching path, one of the tendencies that I had as a little witchlet was, oh, wow, getting so overexcited about the tiniest hint of magic because it's so much fun. And when it's so much fun, we realise that it feels so great. We're filled with this sense of vibrancy and achievement and power. So we go pop. Maybe a little bit before what everybody else does. Let's take the example of an experienced person and someone who's just starting their witch's path and they are coming to their first open celebration. So the pudding of power starts to build. We have a big spiraling energy. Everyone is dancing together and putting their energy and their dreams and their goals into this. They've talked about this ritual. They know exactly what it is that they want to achieve, whether that is energy for a particular spellcraft or some healing, or whether it's just a celebratory joining in with each other as friends and family in the craft. Newcomer Susie, not been practicing very long. She's done a few solitary rituals maybe. Gets that excitement that I talked about earlier. As soon as the energy starts to build, she can feel it really, really intensely. But Jane, on the other hand, who's been a witch for, well, since before Susie was born, she has a different perception of energy. Yes, she can feel that energy start to build. And yes, there will be that sense of it building up power and energy. But she could keep going like this all day long, or until she really feels that energy vibrating up above her head. In a cone of power, the peak is the top of your head. You want it shooting right out, so it's just vibrantly bursting forward without any real effort from you. But the pudding of power, oh no, the peak of the pudding is missing. When Susie, who's new, goes, "Way, pop!" she's reached a really fantastic level of energy, and there is absolutely everything right with that. It's going to work for her spells, for her intentions. What do we say? Tina, on the other hand, who's been doing it for donkey's years, is waiting for that to get even more strong. So it builds above her head like a witch's hat or an upside down ice cream cone, depending what you want to eat at the end of the ritual. Just a slight aside to this, eating and drinking something after ritual is a really important part of celebration, but it's also important for another aspect. It's magically very grounding, especially if you've got something heavy like a nice stodgy chocolate cake. And you can experiment with what you like. So getting the cone of power to reach right above your head is really important. That's what we're aiming for. That way it's already come away from our bodies. It's zooming out of its own accord. We don't really need to do much else with it, just to visualize that floating away on the web of energy to do our work for us. But if you're not very good at sensing magical energy, you've maybe not been doing it for as long, or perhaps you just never quite got the knack of it. There are things that you can do to strengthen that ability and to improve your chances of getting a really significant cone of power that doesn't leave the experts, for want of a better word, thinking, oh, well, that was okay, but we could have done better. Some of the things that have been mentioned by Doreen Valiente was to have someone stationed to whip up the dancers. Now, she doesn't mean a cat o' nine tails. We're not talking BDSM. We're just talking someone who is dedicated for that ritual to run around after everybody else. If you've got a ritual of, say, more than 5 or 10 people, you can do this easily. You can have somebody whose job it is to goad others into working faster, circling harder, focusing on those words that you're chanting out. Maybe James healing, or new job. So we don't want people getting carried away too early, and we also want to make sure that they're focusing on that specific spellcraft, your specific purpose. And having someone stationed to whip up the dancers, as Doreen so beautifully put it, means that they are dedicated, that one person is dedicated to going around and encouraging everyone else. You might find Susie going, oh my God, Brian, I had no idea it was going to be this good. You know, you don't want to chatter. So your stationed whip person will be just geeing the others along. And maybe maybe as the circle progresses, they'll get more and more into it. And if they feel that peak rising even higher than they thought was possible, they're going to want even more of it next time, because it's kind of addictive, this magical cone of power. It's a beautiful, beautiful sensation. So we want everyone to get as much out of it. Also, of course, the stronger and more powerful our cone, our raising of energy, the more chances we have of our spell working in the way that we want it to. So how do we learn then to deal with those magical energies? How do we figure out how they feel? Some people have hyperphantasia. That's people like me. I'm incredibly good at visualizing things. I saw something moving then. Incredibly good at visualizing images in my head and hearing voices in my head that I conjure up. So I'm quite good at meditation and path working. And other people have aphantasia, which means they can't remember images in their head at all. They physically can't hold images in their head. So they have difficulty recognizing even somebody's face who they've known a long while. Most of us fall somewhere between that spectrum. So we can picture things inside our mind, but not necessarily call them into being strongly enough for a long meditation. I'm going to show you a little way of how to picture that working really well for you. So take some simple object. I've got here a little jar of incense. I can pop that on the little counter here in front of me and just stare at it. Ooh, like it's the best thing you have ever seen in your entire life. So you want to take into account the shape, the texture of it, feel it, give it a little rattle. What does it sound like? Does it smell? Take note of everything, whether there are any little bits stuck to the edge of the glass, the colours of the different incense. Just spend ages and ages and ages looking at that. Then you close your eyes and call it back to mind. And remember, what did the cork look like? How far up was it sticking out? Was the glass misted or clear? What coloured shapes did you see in that incense? Remember the rattling sound that it made and the smell. So call all of these things to mind. Don't just rely on what you think you can see in your mind, but what you can smell, taste, hear, what you can feel with your hands. Bring all of that to mind as well, and you'll start to gradually develop the ability to see shapes and imagine them in your mind more clearly and more strongly. That will certainly help with building your psychic abilities, and it will help with your witchcraft. In order to feel and sense magical energy, it's a great way to start is with your aura, your own aura. I'm just going to light this candle here. Should have really chopped the wick down a little before I started. So it's really easy to see your own aura. And one of the ways that you can do this is to just get a simple candle and put your hands the opposite side of it to you. So you can see your hand starting to glow with that orange, and you can feel the warmth of it. Bring your other hand to join it. So your hands are in front of the candle flame from where you're sitting. So I've got my hands, the candle, myself. What you want to be doing is preferably against a plain black or white background. A white background works better for me. You might try black or some other colour, maybe a yellowy colour background. And you want to be looking at the space that is between your fingers. And imagine that you can see there an invisible thread running from one hand to the other. So as you touch your fingers and draw them apart, you will begin to see a little tendril of energy, like you've got a piece of cling film between your fingers. So you can't really see cling film, it's completely see-through, but you know that it's there. It can also look a little bit like heat haze on a hot road, and other people have likened it to ready brick. Not many of you will be old enough to remember what I'm talking about by that, but if you know the ready brick adverts, that's what you're looking for. So your own aura then is something that we can manipulate and see and change and shape as much as we want to. And the way that we start to figure that out is by doing simple exercises like this that will gradually build up our ability to sense other people's auras. Using the same principle. If you have a friend who's willing to do this with you, that's great. Grab them on board. Doesn't matter if they're a witch or not, as long as they're willing to open themselves up to this experience and just not knock it on the head as a load of old rubbish. So somebody sympathetic to our pagan ways. They are standing here, you're standing here, and you walk towards each other with your hands stretched out in front of you. And what you want to be doing is just feeling for that sense of something there. A great way to start this is to rub your hands together. I'm sure you've all done this dozens of times, and I'm teaching you to suck eggs, but it does work. Briskly rub your hands together like it's a really hot day. Pull them apart and very slowly back together. You may even feel like your hands are being drawn together without you really having much to do with it. And when you get to about an inch or so away, you'll feel, hopefully, a little resistance or warmth, kind of like you've got two opposing magnets that are butting away from each other. It can also feel like you're holding something, but when you look, you're surprised that there's nothing there. So this is the feeling of energy. That's what we're getting. So try that again and get your other person to do this with you. Get your friend to do this with you too. This is really cool. So person A and person B walking towards each other. Person B, the person who's projecting, we'll call person B. They can just stand there and be aware of their energy and where they think they want to put it out from you. Your job is to walk toward them so that you, with your hands outstretched, can sense when you hit their aura. Now, the aura is normally an arm's length away from you and above you in all directions and below you as well. We can project it much further and we can draw it back into us. And the way to get used to that is by doing these kind of partner exercises, or to use a plant or an animal to try and sense their energies and auras. And once we've kind of got a handle on that, you can then get your person to stand further away and to imagine a line between you where they're going to say, right, my aura is going to come up to here. So let's see this black line here on my sofa. I'm going to project my energy to there. That's my markation. So you've picked something out, and maybe I'm standing here and projecting toward that line. So let's have you practice that with somebody. If you don't have a person with you, try it on a plant or a pet. I have goldfish, and I'm pretty sure they even have auras. I've never tried it with them. That's an interesting experiment. But cats really, really don't like this sort of work. They just clear off like cats do. Dogs absolutely love it because as you come closer to them, they get a fuss, which is lovely. Great way of sharing energy. Back to our candle. A great way of filling your aura up with good vibes and niceness is to use a simple candle, and I'll tell you in a moment why my favourite ones for this are birthday cake candles. Put your hands around the candle flame. You can see this is working because my hand is glowing that beautiful orange. And up here, I can feel the heat really quite far up from that candle. So I know that there's energy coming out. All I have to do is grab it and put it into each of my chakras in turn. So I wait just a minute or two, absorbing the light and the warmth and the soft, soft glow, the energy that that candle is just scooping into me. And you put it in each of your chakras in turn. When you come to your crown chakra, really grab the last of that energy. By now, if you're using a birthday candle, you'll be about halfway through. It doesn't, take a bit longer than this. Absorb that energy, see it working, see that orange lovely glow on your hands, feel the heat, and put that to your crown chakra, and more of it onto your crown. Breathe in calm, clear, wonderful energy. Put your hands up to the ceiling and draw energy down from the sky. Put your hand down to the ground and pour energy up from the earth. Mix them together with this beautiful gift of energy from the candle, and let that all channel out through your crown chakra like a fountain, like the cone of power. That can then fill your aura up with goodness. Next thing you can do is to pat that aura into place. So to create the last of that little candles that's dying down, just pop it into place. You can use your hands or you can visualize, it depends on your preference. When you're putting this into place, it acts as a boundary between worlds if you're in circle work. It also has a really nice add-on effect. I like to use public transport because I hate parking, and it also gives me a good chance to get stuck into a really nice book. And invariably, somebody will come along and sit right next to me. And I'm happy to talk to anybody, but right now I'm reading. Clear off. This happens so often. What are you reading? Oh, it's a book about this. Thank you. Where are you going to? This boundary works wonders for keeping those people at bay. They may still sit next to you, but they get this kind of feeling. They know that they should not approach you because witches bite. I hope that makes sense. I don't mean that we're physically repelling them away. We're just keeping a barrier there so that our energy is intact. And if we brush up against somebody who's angry in the high street and they get out of my way, it can sometimes affect us later on. It can set us in a bad mood for the rest of the day. So this kind of energy work is really helpful to protect us from those everyday, daily situations that we invariably come across. And it also works to build up our connection to energy and to strengthen our auras, to increase the positiveness that we have inside of us. It increases our own positivity. It puts us in a better mood. And you can decorate this bubble temple whatever colour you like. You can imagine it as a vibrant green, like the grass in springtime. You could visualize it as a kind of a whitish cloud colour, or you could visualize it whatever colour you like. I call it silver, blue, purple, gold. That's how I see it. It's all of those colours jumbled in, kind of like looking through a bubble that's got petrol on it. You know, that kind of rainbowy colours you get in viscous surfaces sometimes. Another way of developing your energy and being able to feel it so you get a great circle is to take something like this pyramid. This is an organite pyramid. You may have one that's made out of crystal. Doesn't matter. It could be a wire pyramid, or even one made out of paper and card and decorated with really lovely sigils made in circle would be just as nice. Pyramid shapes are what cause us to have a good experience with them. So by putting your hands again around this pyramid and visualizing that it's connected to the ground, it's connected to our ancestors, connected to the universal energy, coming out toward you. There's another little tool you can use. One other item that I really love, it's a great way to use a little bit of energy to get rid of negative stings in your house. You know, if you've had someone come around that you're not entirely happy with the way that the energy's feeling afterwards, for whatever reason. It could be someone you really like, but maybe they just said something that niggled a little bit. Or sound magic. I call these my dingers. I know they have a proper name, Tibetan bells maybe, but for me they just go ding. I'm going to bring that a little bit closer so hopefully you can hear it. I'm hard of hearing, and that is just the perfect sound for me to hear, but some of the sounds I don't hear at all. Sound creates its own energy vibration. Bells, singing bowls, drums, finger cymbals, anything that makes a noise, even clapping or using a rain stick or banging a spoon against a saucepan, is a great way of creating energy that vibrates, tingles, to get rid of anything that does not belong in your home or your current situation. If you think back to a couple of weeks ago when we were all still going out on a Thursday night at 8 o'clock, what I like to call the 8 o'clock howling, Ask Street had a hoot. We had people out there with drums. I would go out and spin my poi around. We'd have people with cymbals. We had a guy who was playing his recorder a few houses away across the back. And it was a really lovely place. But the greatest sound of all were these children who lived next door to me, who came out with their saucepan and spoons going, woohoo! It was just so much fun. Everyone who took part in it felt happier and brighter. And it goes without saying that the NHS have done a superb job and always will do. And thank you to them for allowing us to praise you, that gave us energy, that sparked happiness in our lives. So sound is a great way of using energy. You can take energy from a candle. You can also raise energy in circle through dancing and chanting and drumming. Not always as easy to do that if you're a solitary witch, because of course you have this, I'm in my own, what do I say, what do I do, no one else is doing this with me, it's not as much fun. You're doing it wrong. Get excited. Have a glass of wine if you need to chill out a little bit. There's nothing wrong with making yourself feel a little bit merry for a celebration. For magical work though, stay pure, stay focused. But I don't think there's anything wrong with luxurious softened furnitures around you, with dressing up in something nice, putting on your favourite perfume or aftershave, putting on your favourite clothes, or taking them all off. If you're on your own, nobody else cares. Nobody hears you when you're on your own as a solitary witch, as I was years ago. You can do this kind of stuff in your lounge, shout out to your heart's content. No one is going to laugh at you because you're there on your own and you can do what you want. Don't be put off by people saying, you need a coven to do magic. Rubbish. We all know that solitary magic works just as well and efficiently as coven magic. But when you are in a group, it's important to be mindful of what everyone else is doing. Hopefully, for a really good ritual, you will have somebody leading that ceremony, somebody with a little bit of witchy experience and knowledge, who can gee people along and sense when that power really begins to raise so high that it's going above our heads, and it can go even higher if we just give a little bit more. Someone who can sense energy. It doesn't have to be a high priest or a high priestess. It can be someone who's never done much of this before, but just gets energy and can physically see it. In much the same way that we can visualize things in our mind. So this strength of the visualizing, looking at things and remembering what they look like in our head, we can also kind of soften our focus very slightly and see the energy that we have carved out of the earth in this magic circle, carved out of the universe, drawing with your athame down from the sky, pulling that energy into the circle. You want to be focusing on the energy coming from the universe through you, through your athame, and pointing it around your circle. And when you're carving toward your elemental points, you're really strongly visualizing those there, continuing around until you've created your circle. You can also use your athame to direct energy from that cone of power to a specific thing, literally by holding it with you and visualizing all that energy slicing through toward your object, whether that's a poppet, a candle, crystals, or a photograph of somebody you're trying to send healing to. So, how do we make sure that we don't end up with a pudding of power? This is easier than you might think. What I really like to do is give everybody an assigned role. Your role is to dance and have lots of lovely fun with everybody that you're with. Your role, yeah, I'm talking to you, Susie, the newcomer, just keep a focus, stay tuned, watch that person there who's our dedicated leader for this ceremony. So everybody knows what they're meant to be doing. Explain the ritual beforehand will really help, and give people little cues that they can look out for. So if I'm presiding over a ceremony where I want lots of people to raise lots of energy, and I don't want newcomers to go away thinking a pudding of power is what we do. I want them to know that we have a great big cone of power. They'll still get a good experience from a pudding of power, but even more so, and it will help our magical aims much more if we can get that energy higher. So I like to make sure that everybody who I've put in charge of little things, Dave's going around keeping the incense and the candles lit and making sure no one catches fire. It kind of has a role of health and safety, I guess. Maybe Liz is keeping the drummers in time. And perhaps I've also got someone stationed to whip up the dancers. And I've got people, if I have enough of them, stationed at the quarters to keep an eye on what the energy is doing there, and to keep those portals to the kings of the elementals open during ritual. And we've probably got somebody else who is maybe running around directing energy and giving general assistance where needed. So as a priest or priestess, then, your job is to make sure they all know that they're looking at you, they are aware of what you're doing, they will take their cues from you. And by looking at when you are ready to feel that energy peak, if you kind of feel it buzzing around your head and people are starting to raise their arms naturally, which does happen in circle, then you can get a sense yourself of that energy is about to peak. So I need to be looking at my people, Dave, Sandy, whoever's in charge of things, to make sure they're paying attention to when I drop that signal. It might be 1, 2, 3, or perhaps my signal will be a series of claps above my head and a big shout, woo! Whatever your signal is to those people, make sure they're looking out for it. And if they're not, give them another role next time. By doing this, you have a really well organised ceremony, and everybody who's involved will get a better experience out of it. That's how we do ritual. We plan it a little bit in ahead. It doesn't take long to say, at the very, very last minute, Sandy, can you just keep an eye on the candles for me? Make sure that we've got plenty of incense burning. And Dave, can you just make sure no one trips over anything? Move the logs out of the way. Make sure there's enough room in the lounge. Whatever you're doing, keep people safe. Make sure people have fun. Allocate roles to others, and make sure that they know they take their signals from you. And then don't do this. Oh my God, this is amazing. Oh, signal, yes, go. Which really puts people out of their stride. If I'm presiding over a ritual, I have to make sure that I'm in charge of what I'm doing. And hopefully then I'm also looking out for people in the circle to make sure that they're having a good time. Make sure no one's getting distressed. Remember that ritual is a really deep and powerful experience for many of us, and the last thing I want to do is see somebody across the circle from me in floods of tears, nobody looking after them to see why. You need to just make sure they've got a buddy to go up to them, even if that's you, even if that means calling a halt to the ritual, just saying, actually, we need to stop this now because this person needs some assistance and we're going to do that. Let's do a healing circle or whatever. But don't put people on the spot. Having a circle work well means often having multiple people involved, and if you haven't planned carefully in advance, then you're going to be relying on people stepping in at the last minute, and they may not know quite what to do, they may not know what to say, they may be highly good at this sort of thing, but just not want to perform in front of a lot of people. So don't make people do anything they don't want to, and always make sure that at any point, anyone who's not comfortable is either being looked after or feels like it's okay for them to step outside of the circle. If you're not in the closed coven, I don't see any reason why a newcomer who's feeling this is really not for them should be forced to endure the whole thing. And one other thing that I just wanted to say before we finished is, if you are using chanting and dancing in your circle, put some welly into it. He recognises this. We all come from the goddess, and to her we shall return. This is why I don't sing at festivals. It's terrible, but it will demonstrate my point. It's a lovely song, and yeah, we do all come from the goddess, but we're not at a funeral. Can we sound happy about it? We all come from the goddess, yeah, and to her we shall return. So I'm already feeling a little bit of a buzz because I've put more into it. This is about creating massive amounts of energy, being able to sense it, being able to feel it in circle, letting it build up and come up to a peak. One of the main ways that you can tell when energy is beginning to peak and it's just about to spiral out of control is people stand up taller, they look happier, they look exhausted probably by this point, and you can feel their energy because everyone's hands are naturally lifting up. One other important thing about cone of power work is grounding afterwards. This is where your chocolate and your wine come into it. Anything chocolatey. You could also use chocolate cake or chocolate biscuits. You could use chocolate shortbread. I'm getting onto a theme here, but this does feature quite largely in a lot of Wiccan rituals. So at open celebrations, make sure you're keeping an eye on people who are new to this and explain beforehand what they're going to expect. Let them know it's okay. They can signal to you, I'm not comfortable with this. And one of your designated helpers can talk to them about anything they're worried about, or go through the experience with them, so then they leave with a positive image of us witches. And once you've raised that cone of power, everybody's joyful and happy, you feel like the spell has worked, you can direct it down into your spell item. If you're going to give that to somebody, if you are using something like a healing crystal, you can direct that energy into it and give it to the person that you're healing. Or perhaps you might like to direct that back out onto the web, which is what we would normally do. So imagine the universal energy as a giant spider web that goes out all around you in every direction possible. And we're just one tiny little bump on that thread, and the energy will pass through from me to the universe, to the person who's going to help me get my cat out of the tree or whatever problem I'm dealing with. It will bounce back to where it needs to be to bring healing energies to the person we're doing the spell work for. So keep your focus. Make sure everyone has a role and knows what they're doing. Explain things to your newcomers. Get people to look out for the person who's leading the ceremony to give them that signal, because when they do, the cone of power rises so high it will make you pop. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I'm happy to answer any questions. And if you would like some more information on me and what I do, you can look at the Children of Artemis website, find out a little bit more there, or pop along to moirahodgkinson.org. Thank you.